Hi, I'm Jen Bullard. I'm a video game developer here in Austin, Texas, and I've been doing it since 1998. One of the things that I learned was collaboration is key, and none of us are trained in it or learn how to do it, and it's not rewarded very often. So I wanted to present that because, it's a good topic to talk about, and a lot of people don't touch on it. So we're going to start small in the collaboration world, and we're going to start with just base teamwork. When you're in K through 12 and even in college, what you are rewarded is your own individual contributions. The only thing that you get rewarded on is how well you can do math, how well you can be a science person or read or anything. And you don't get rewarded on anything else. No one rewards you for being nice to somebody. Nobody rewards you for helping someone else out. You're never rewarded for that in school. And the problem is that's the entire workforce. I'm only rewarded on how well I can get other people to do things. I'm only rewarded on my ability to talk to others, which is empathy and communication. So we don't train anyone at 22 years of age to go into the workforce. They're completely unprepared. There's a fun statistics out there. 80% of your first promotion is EQ, not IQ, which is to say your soft skills. That's what gets you promoted. Because after your first job and you got in there, we all assume you have the skills to do it. The question is, do you have the ability to work with someone else? And if we don't take time to train people, then they obviously don't. And of course, when you're working in school, this is pretty much how every team project looked for me anyway. There was, the lazy dude who got my A because he was on my team. There was the person who ran off and did their own thing because they got pissed off at us and hated our idea and didn't want to work with us. And then there was the 2 or 3 people who were like, fine, we'll just do all the work and we'll get it done. Well, in the real world, and these people all got the same grade. That doesn't happen in the real world. The first thing is the person gets fired. Drop day sickness is not cool. Anybody who's played video games knows next day you're really tired. I don't care. Come into work. That's your problem. This person eventually gets fired because after you rewrite an animation system overnight and screw up all other 45 artists' work, yeah, you're not long for that company. It's just not going to work. I don't care how awesome you are. If you can't work with others, goodbye. And then these two, they end up on a performance plan because they're overextending and they're overdoing and they're doing too much and they're not letting other people have an opinion and they're not letting other people do work. So they tend to override everything because they're used to having to do it. So they are the ones that end up having to learn it. And a lot of jobs, especially first time around, end up in these scenarios. And I've worked with several hundred people in the last 15 some odd years, and this is how first run usually goes. And teamwork is not something that happens like this. I'm not going to put people who are really super experienced in a room and never worked with each other. That is not going to work for the first 6 months. They're going to get to know each other, get to hate each other, get to yell at each other. Then they're finally going to figure out how to work together for a while. We might slip back into that I hate you moment, but then we get back into it. And then eventually, after a long time, they will finally perform. Now, in my industry, what usually happens is, so anybody here have heard the game Dishonored? Okay, that core team made 2 games beforehand. They made Thief and Deus Ex. They've been working together for like 15 years. They finally managed to make their performance after like a decade. They figured out their formula years later. So this stuff is not something you're going to learn overnight or practice overnight. And every time the team changes, this changes. So the other thing we have to understand too about collaboration is what it looks like for each individual industry. So we're used to competition being something like this. I buy one computer every few years. I buy a car every few years. Those people are really in competition, iOS and Dell, they're all in competition. But that's not how it works in some industries. In the music industry, I don't have one song or one label or one group. I have lots of them. I have thousands of them. I have friends who are autophiles and like, I have 1 million songs. And I know because I just backed up the terabyte of it. I'm like, shit. So yes, people have lots. We all buy it. We buy it regularly too. It's not like you buy it and you're done. Oh, I bought my 100 and I'm finished. No, something new comes out. Same thing for film. I mean, this is my Netflix binge watching, right? Like, and I just go through and I binge it. They figured this out. They're like, we'll take everybody together and put them here and you can play them endlessly and we'll just charge you a certain amount. Same thing for video games. People play video games endlessly. And if you like one RPG, you're going to buy lots of RPGs. And if you like first-person shooter, you're going to buy a bunch of them and you're going to play them. So we're not actually competitive. We're collaborative. And some people are figuring this out. And what they do is they put in all these review sites. And you want to go to this review site and say, I want to bring my game in. And they're like, well, how many people are playing it? And they're like, well, 500. But if you can do something like the Humble Bundle, that's a little bit better. Because it's not 500, it's 5,000 or 10,000. Because you've got 5 or 6 games in there. And now you've got everybody's audience contributing to it. And I'll get a little bit more into that coming up. So what I'm starting to get to is how you team up with other businesses, because this is where real collaboration becomes very interesting. This is the traditional form of collaboration. This is interesting. The #1 bestseller song was a compilation. They sold over 1 million records. One Direction, I think, broke like 300,000. And the reason being is there are 20 songs on there by a lot of different artists. And this is how things like Steam bundle packs work. This is how Netflix works. And this is a very traditional collaboration concept. I have lots of money, I buy up rights, we split the cash, and we walk away. It has its problems, like artists don't ever get paid, but it is a moneymaker and it's a proven business model. This is a different type of collaboration. This is a company that collaborates internally. They don't really care who you are or what you do. If it's a good idea, they're going to do it. So this was their first release in 1986. They've been around for a while. And this was their breakout hit in 1995. They have a flat corporate structure, and everyone is encouraged to try, submit ideas, and if they fail, it's cool. Because the chief creative team failed for 9 years. And they knew. Failure is how we learn. It's where we get all of our stuff from. So we have 2 different types of collaboration. We have one which is, big publishers, and another one which is a good, solid, internal team one. I like this example of collaboration. For anybody who's not familiar, that's the Wu-Tang Clan. In 1993, 9 kind of broke artists who were really all going their own separate ways and had their own interpersonal issues, and a bunch of alpha personalities got together and built an album. And they were able to bring that album to record stores and radio stations because they had collectively over 10,000 people. Individually, though, they only had around 1,000. So even though, these people were popular, they weren't 10,000 popular. And if you're going to break in, you got to have 10,000. It's just the way the radio world works, or the way the music world works. Today, they've got more people, and they're earning $86 million. Their particular flavor fixed the publisher problem. They're all allowed to do their own individual work. They're asked to contribute to specific albums on regular intervals so that the entire group can benefit, but they're also allowed, without any problems at all, to put out their own album that they do themselves. So that allows individual creativity at the same time collaborating on a specific problem that everyone in the entertainment world has, which is getting noticed, being able to market your product to a lot of people. And the other reason that I like this is, if you've ever met, seen, or heard any of these gentlemen, they're really alpha personalities. They are not the people you go, yeah, I can see them working together really well. I'm like, no, that's not how I would see them at all. But they managed to do it because they realized it was just a smart business option. So what is it that all of these people did to create collaborative environments. How did they start with this? And this first slide is obvious, and it's really hard to get people to do it. Take your drama and your ego and leave it at the door. This is a team effort. You know, we have all these lovely little cliches, and everyone kind of overlooks that. And they're like, well, I'm the best at whatever. And I'm like, I don't really care. Right now, you're dragging everybody down, and you're being the best at being the worst. So shut it. And then there's a whole group of people. I like this little picture because this is the, well, if you don't do it my way, I'm going to take my ball and go home. Great. Goodbye. Guess what you just did? You quit. You quit your job. I'm like, really? This is what you want to do? So it's hard to check your ego at the door because you have to think about someone besides yourself, which is not something we are used to doing because that's not how we can do things. You have to see something from someone else's point of view. Empathy is really hard. Otherwise, the world would not shoot each other. You know, prime example. But because we have all this conflict, we're used to it. Also, you're used to seeing so many people in the media who express ego. Whether they really have it or not, they're expressing it. And people think that's the norm, and that's not. That's not how real business really, really works. The second part of collaboration is you have to create an environment for failure. Now, these game titles are actually done by some very famous people that you probably don't recognize them because they didn't do well. So the #1 game designer in the world made these 2 games. And if we punished him for his failure, he would have never made the rest of this stuff. And that's Shigeru Miyamoto. And he has created franchises. He has built Nintendo's biggest selling stuff. And he's also built some lemons, because we all do. You only really learn from your failure. If you succeed, you can never tell why. Most people are like, what was your secret to success? And the person goes, I don't know. But if you go, why did you fail? They go, I can tell you every detail about why I failed. I know exactly what not to do. I know the 10,000 things that will make this suck the next time. So this is how these people learn. This is Rovio. They had 51 meh games. 51. They put out 51 titles, and everyone went, that's cute, and didn't do anything with it. Some of them didn't sell at all. And then they came up with Angry Birds. So if you have an environment where people can fail, what you have is an environment of experimentation. You have an opportunity for somebody to do something great. There's a lot of companies that do this sort of stuff. Valve is another one. Pixar obviously is one. And they do some amazing things, and they let people fail. One of the interesting things about allowing people to fail is recognizing the difference between work and outcome. So a lot of times they'll say, well, I'm going to reward the person whose outcome was the best. And I'm like, well, this doesn't mean that they did any more or less work than other people. And that's also not any more of a guarantee that their next thing is going to be more successful. You know, imagine if Nintendo had punished Shigeru Miyamoto before he was super successful. What if they had said, you know, you're not cutting it. You've had a couple of flops. You know, you should find a new career. They would have lost his talent. He would have gone away. And if they had done this in any kind of financial way or anything else, he would have done his same stuff, but he would have brought it to a different company. So you have to have a way for people to fail, especially in a creative environment that is okay. You're not going to be penalized for it. You're going to be asked the question, what did you learn, and can you share that with the group so other people don't make your mistake? So when you're doing collaboration, we also have to think about what is the outcome. And the most popular outcome is this one. And it's a zero-sum game, and it's one winner and one loser. So this is sports. This is just straight up sports. In many ways, this is hardware companies, you know. I buy one computer, everyone else lost, one person won my sale. So that's a very traditional one, and it is a valid competitive thing for lots of markets. This is the win-lose scenario. This is the internet, as I like to say. Everybody wants to argue. They refuse to give in any way, shape, or form, and everybody ends up losing. No one gets anything out of it. And this is something that happens a lot. Both people walk away sometimes thinking, you know, in this particular little graphic, they're questioning, why didn't I accomplish my goal? But in reality, when I hear people after a lose-lose scenario, they go, well, I'm still right. I'm like, well, you're right, but you didn't sell your car. Like, you're right, but you have to rent your car to go to the mountains. You didn't get done what you wanted to get done. You can feel right all you want, but you didn't do anything. This one is the win-win scenario. And this is where things like empathy, communication, those are the things that start coming in, where you have to think about what is the thing that is most important to me. So in this scenario, this person doesn't want to make another insurance payment. They want the car sold before the insurance payment. And they want to get at least their fair value out of it. The other person needs to go someplace this weekend. So you can negotiate. You can pick the one thing that's cool for you, that's your point. And then you can work with somebody else and say, you know, all right, I'll negotiate and give and take. And it's not easy. I mean, if I was on the internet, someone would say I lost. You know, if I was out there and said, this is the scenario, they're like, yeah, but you lost. You could have made an extra, you know, $300 if you just stuck it out. I'm like, but I'd still have to make my insurance payment, which would be that $300 I would have lost. So you have to understand what is truly important to you and realize it's okay for other people to get a piece of pie as long as you get a piece of pie. This is not a zero-sum game in this scenario. Everybody can have a piece of pie. It's fine. Now, it's nice to have the whole pie, but it's better to have some pie rather than no pie. There's a saying in business, would you like to have a very small pie, or would you like to have a slice of a really big pie, where the whole number is better than the percentage? Because that's what a lot of businesses do, and they focus on. You know, maybe it's a smaller percentage, but the pie is really big. I'll tell you right now, I will take 1% of $1 billion. That's cool. I'm fine with that. If the pie is $1 billion, I'll take my 1%. We're done. I'm good. Even $1 million. I'm like, sweet. So people just need to really kind of focus on math a little bit and figure out what it is that they want. And the other part of collaboration is finding the common problems that we have. So this is an interesting one. I was looking at odd business mergers because I'm kind of a geek. And Heinz and Coca-Cola have this partnership. I was like, why the hell are they partnering? They got nothing alike. Actually, they do. They both make plastic containers. So it's a combined cost issue. So what they did was they combined their need into one provider, and they also worked on saying, well, what is your bottle like? This is what my bottle is like. Instead of trying to, you know, reverse engineer it, because the bottle is not important to them. It's the product and the brand that's important to them. So getting the cost of the plastic down is better for them. And it's also better that it's environmentally friendly because they're both taking huge hits for producing plastic bottles. So they had a common problem. And they seem to be not in the same market space. And in many ways, that's video games, music, and film. All of us have a common problem with marketing. We're kind of in the same space, but not really. But in many ways, we can go along. If you like, you know, a specific type of music, you will probably like a video game that matches that. So if you're into heavy, you know, hip-hop or, you know, music with a driving beat, you probably like first-person shooters or high-end action games. Why not partner up? And people are finally figuring this out. If you like RPGs, you probably like really good orchestral, you know, adventurous, upbeat music. And that's why you see all these crossovers, and that's why they're so popular. So you can take two markets that are a little different and merge them and grow them. The one on the bottom is interesting because you would assume that they're in direct competition with each other. One of them is Harvard and the other one's MIT. Well, they are. They're totally in direct competition, but they're only in direct competition for the physical seats. There's this new emerging education market called MOOCs, massively online college courses or something like that. And that has been eating away at their students. They're like, oh, we're in trouble. So they got together and created edX. And it's a joint collaboration. There was a new problem that they both couldn't solve on their own that was probably killing their business. And they went, look, not only can we be competitive in a new online market, but we can also work together and beat the competition. So these are people who look at their competitors and go, how can I work with them to make both of our businesses better, either by reducing costs or finding a new market? How can I do that? So this is kind of a quick recap of that. And I want to really focus on, it's really important to come across win-win scenarios. Because if you're always in partnership with somebody and you always lose, you're going to stop partnering with them. If both people lose, you might not be in business to partner next time. So everyone has to win enough in order to come back to the table the second time. If you focus only on the win-lose, you only focus on the short term, your business will have a short lifespan. You know, Wu-Tang Clan's been around for 20 years. And as a brand new independent label that only does a niche market, that's pretty freaking impressive. I mean, they have a lot of fluctuation in their people and the people that are there. But they know everyone has to walk away with a win or it's not worth it to them. So they're always looking at, what are we doing for the next 10 years? If you find discrepancies, you got to fix them. You know, part of collaboration is owning up to what you've done wrong. And if you've got a safe environment of failing, then everyone already recognizes you're going to do it wrong anyway. It's going to happen. I make all sorts of mistakes. I probably made like 10 on my way here. I'm sure I pissed somebody off when I was driving. It just happens. You know, you don't even know it. But the biggest thing is to try not and repeat them. So this is me. And like I said, I just like to talk about collaboration, and hopefully you all learned a little something new about how you can improve your potential business or career. And if anyone has any questions, it's really short. Yeah. Actually, yes, there are. So the first thing to do is there's two parts to building a strong team. One is very clear expectations. It seems micromanaging, but it's really not. I expect, have you ever heard of SMART goals? Okay, yeah. So that's why those came across. It's very specific. And the biggest part of that is to get the buy-in and to let everyone else know you are in charge of this. And if I have a question, I should go to you for the answer, not to our boss, because you're going to give me that answer. So in a collaborative environment, you want to say, these are your responsibilities, and this is your authority. And this is where your authority stops. At any point in time that you have authority overlap two places, that creates conflict. So you want really super hard lines around authority and responsibilities. And you want people to know, do not step over that line. I have a very loud, kind of dominating personality. Shocker. But I work with a lot of really shy, introverted engineers. Shocker. Because I'm in the game industry. Well, I have to go to my lead programmer all the time. And I'm always asking questions. And I'm like, is it okay if we do this? It's like, yes. You know what to do. Why don't you just do it? Because you're the lead programmer. And every time, I will always get your say off. Because that one time I didn't is going to be the one time you disagree with me. Or if people see me do that, they're going to be upset because I'm overstepping his boundaries. Maybe we have that relationship, but his team doesn't. So really hard lines around responsibility and authority, and then you have to back it up. The second part is really hard and requires a lot of personal self-discipline. And that's creating a safe environment for people to exist. When you're dealing with someone who's very aggressive and someone who's very not aggressive, I wouldn't say passive, but just not aggressive, aggressive people will just run rampant over everyone else. And if they're allowed to do that and you make that an okay situation, all those people will go away. So in the game industry, that's like half the team. Half of my team are very quiet and averted people. It's always good to have fun. It is not good to be snarky. I am a super snarky person, and it's cool when I'm like drinking beers after the hours, but during the workplace is gone. I am like total professional because I'm their boss. And if I do a put down and they don't get it, and they don't pick up on it, because I deal with a lot of people who are on the Asperger spectrum, they won't pick that cue up. They'll think I really think that way, and I've ruined their day. I might be able to unwind it once, but I'll never be able to unwind it twice, and they'll be afraid of me. The other reason to make a safe environment is people always have to tell you bad news. I'm a producer. I am the bad news queen. Everybody comes to me with bad news because that's my job. I firefight. So when someone walks in and says, so the servers crashed, I'm like, well, thank you for letting me know. And that's my tone. Thank you for letting me know. Inside I'm like, and I've got this rage machine going, oh my God. And if I really need 5 minutes to calm down, I'll be like, let me go talk to so-and-so and we'll see what we can do. Okay, why don't you go do this? And I will make them go away and give myself 5 minutes to like freak out on my own and then come back calm with an idea. So I never ever show anger in the workplace. It's always a bad idea. And I don't let other people do it too. If someone's getting really riled up and really angry, it's a 5-minute break. We're all gonna go to the bathroom, get drinks, do whatever. And that's why my managerial job is so hard, is because I'm paying attention, like, all right, is everybody cool? Okay, everyone's being fine, even though the conversation is getting a little heated. Oh, this person needs a break. Hey, everybody, bathroom break, I have to pee. And I always make it my fault. I never make it that person's fault. I never call anybody out. And if I do need to, we do it in my office privately. Or at a walk around the building. I notice you're getting really hot under collar. Let's go for a walk and find out what's going on. Half the time it's not even work related. My kid's sick. Like all sorts of stuff. My parents, I had a fight with my wife, whatever. There's always this like, outside world. And you have to be able to help that person push it away and create a safe environment. Because what happens is, if they don't, that just spills onto the team and everybody's angry and I lose a day of productivity. So, and of course with the safety thing, there's so many little things. Like one of them is, if you're in a meeting and somebody constantly interrupts everyone else, you have to stop them like immediately. I know you want to talk, but he's talking, stop. And be really dead serious, no smiles, no nothing. And I go, oh. And they're like, but I really wanted to talk. I know, you always really want to talk. Other people have opinions too, and we're going to hear them, and you're going to wait until the sentence is done. And if somebody is droning on and on, I will say, can you get to the point? So I am the moderator of communication in the meetings. I very rarely contribute to the conversation from a real work point of view. I just make sure that everybody else doesn't talk over each other, doesn't drone on forever, doesn't hog the floor. And if someone's not talking, I ask them why. Like, what's going on? You haven't contributed. Do you have an opinion? Do you want time to think about it? That kind of stuff. That's also why I send out agendas. Here are the things that you must know, because we're going to talk about those. And some people want to prep. Some people don't care, but some people do. So the biggest thing for collaboration is dealing with all of the different work behaviors and trying to balance those out, which can get really hard. That's a good question. So. Absolutely. Okay, so meetup.com is the best thing in the universe because we all use it now. Once again, collaboration is key. So if everybody's on meetup.com or on LinkedIn, that's where you go. So meetup.com, and you can just type in, like, if you keyword search indie games, indie music, or indie film, they will tell you all the meetups. And there's a bunch of them. Like, on second Thursday of every month, there's Wagos Rancheros down in North Door. There's Game Dev Beer Nights and Mr. Tramps. IGDA hosts a couple of things. There's the mobile meetup. I mean, there's like all these places. And there's also a bunch of Facebook pages and stuff like that. Yeah, like there's indie game devs, and there's like global indies and a bunch of other stuff. So go to where people socially congregate is your best first start, and then ask them. Always remember, this is just a general networking tip, everyone is there for the same reason you are, and they are feeling exactly the same. So if you're walking in a room going, wow, I know nobody, and I'm really nervous, so's everyone else, even me. I'm always walking in a room like, do I know anybody? Okay, I know one person, I'll say hi, and hopefully I can make some friends along the way. So everyone, if you keep that in mind, that's that empathy thing. If you look at people and you'll see that person who's like, I want someone to talk to me, but I'm too terrified to look lonely. And you go talk to them, and then they're usually pretty happy that you did that. Yep.
As far as building a collaborative environment, you mentioned sort of this competitive environment.
Mm-hmm.
Working on this team. It was a series of 5 and 10 companies.
Yeah.
And people understand
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
how do you break that down? You don't really agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, I want to use that resource to
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
desire to do this.
Mm-hmm. So, so it depends on what level that's happening at. So when you're dealing with a large company that just merged, you're going to have a multi-layered management scheme. So you're going to have like the C group, and maybe they're the ones that are like, we are totally on board with this, but you don't want to bypass the director level because the directors will be pissed. So depending on where it is in the chain that you're hitting that tension point, that's where you need to start to focus on. Because collaboration is top down. Like if management says we will collaborate and actually enforces it, then this will happen. Sometimes reminding people that they're not being collaborative can help them. Because you remember, they've built up years of habits. So you're trying to make them break the habit. And sometimes habit is something we do when we're not paying any attention at all. So they're not paying attention. So sometimes just saying, well, I wanted to collaborate with you on this thing. I need this resource. The next thing you can say is, what do you need from me? So if you can do the quid pro quo, that's always a good starting point. Because they'll have something in their head. They'll be like, oh yeah, well I do. I need this other resource to come over here. And you go, great, we'll do an exchange. Let's talk about, once again, details. What are your expectations? What are my expectations? How long? Chances it'll overrun? Like all of that kind of stuff. Because one of the reasons that people fear losing a resource when you've got multiple projects is the overrun. I can spare them for 2 weeks, but I just can't spare them for 3. And you always end up needing them for 4 or 5. That's not fair to me, so they're going to be less likely to go with that. So it's building trust, which is, I am going to say this, I am going to do this, and I will actually execute on it, even if it's painful for me. You know, so if I say I will give them back in 2 weeks, they go back in 2 weeks. That's the only way you're going to build trust with them. So, and that's the only way they're going to build trust with you. So you have to start with that. The other thing that they can do, depending on how serious people are about it, is there are actual executive coaches who will take newly formed management teams and get them to work together. They'll spend like 2 days, and it's actually completely worth it. I've done a couple of them. They are amazing. And it really gets people to stop and think about what it is that they're doing. The other big fear that I've seen a lot of times is they're afraid that if your project does better, theirs will be shut down, or they'll lose something. Go back to that environment of failure, right? Like if you've got 5 teams and one of them is doing awesome and they're the only ones who ever get accolades, no one else is going to want to share with them because they're getting punished for a bad outcome, even though they did the same amount of work. And I've seen that a lot too, especially in game companies that have multiple teams. It's like, well, I'm glad that your team has a great outcome and it helps the rest of us, but we all work as hard as you do too, and we should be rewarded for working hard even though our outcome is different. So reminding maybe like the one step above, like, these people work hard. I know their outcome is different, but they work hard, you should recognize them for it. So kind of look and see what negative outcome is happening in your company. You know, or am I afraid of losing resources? I'm afraid of, being financially punished because of a bad outcome. Like, what is it they're afraid of? And then see what you can do to counter that.
Yeah, a lot of the scarcity is resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing you can do in that kind of situation is make sure that, once again, if you've got upper level management who's like, we're going to do this big thing, but we're not taking any time or resources out of our predefined schedules to let it happen. No one's going to do that. That doesn't make any sense for anybody. So, is there a bad policy coming down that's causing this problem, or is it's just a habit that needs to be broken? I find that a lot of behavior is driven from top down. People are like, I won't give up this resource because you will punish me if I'm behind, even though I helped somebody else out. Once again, we're not rewarded for helping.
Yeah, and that's some of it. We're all related to one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is a very tough sell. It really is. And especially if there's a punishment. Like I said, punishing an outcome is really bad for a company that has more than one project. So that's like, oh, this team got a better bonus. If you want the entire company to make everybody towards like the whole company group, everyone has to get the same bonus structure. They can't get a team by team bonus structure. That will kill it instantly. So the reward system, if take a look at the reward system and say, this rewards a bad behavior or rewards a non-collaborative environment. You might want to research this and make it reward a collaborative environment. Especially if some of those old companies still have their own policies around that existing.
Yeah, the whole board system is set
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like if they want to have the whole business, they have to say it's 75% based on the business performance and 25% based on individual, like you as a person performance, and no team performance stuff at all. Like that's just, and it should be 75% the whole company if you want people to contribute to the company, because now they're focusing their efforts on the company. Yeah, if their biggest pie is coming from their project, they're going to protect that really, really hard. Yeah, exactly. And it might require management to go, like really upper level management, to go and rethink it and, talk about it and figure out what they can do. And there are people who do like strategy coaching, and they're really good, and they really understand how to get an entire group of people like that to go, okay, listen, all this other stuff that used to work doesn't work now. Let's focus on that. And they'll manage that. As their employee, it's super hard to manage up in that way. And they won't do it on their own. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So if you can, cup of coffee with somebody who has that kind of influence and say, here's the problem, I don't have a solution, but I do think you might want to seek out a professional who does and go that way. So, yeah. Oh, uninterrupted is the one that I do the most. Uninterrupted, guaranteed 4-hour periods. Your email is off. No one will come to your cube. No meetings. 4 hours every day. That's it. Because what happens with an introverted person is they're so used to being able to focus in a solo environment, they have difficulty focusing with lots of people around them. So I've instituted, we call it quiet hours, 1 to 5. You better be back from lunch at 1 o'clock, and if you're not, you better be dead silent walking through the cube land. And then at 5 o'clock, finally people can start to talk. But there are no hallway meetings, no loud voices. Everybody, it's dead silent. Because if you have introverted people, they just don't want that human contact. And it's fine. So you just say, turn your email off, turn your Skype off. If I need you, I will wait. And that's also back to that trust thing. I will wait. Unless the building is on fire, you're not going to be interrupted. I'm like, if it can't wait because it's, the flames are coming through or whatever, the server crashed. If the server crashed, I'm going to come and get you. Every other reason, I'm not going to talk to you until 5 o'clock. So, yeah, that was the best one that I found. Yes. Yeah, I have, I like to do tiered systems too. Must, should, wish. Must you have this? Should we have this? I wish to have this. And then get the person to assign that rating to you. If it wishes to have, that gets put on the normal weekly conversation loop. If we should have this, that goes on the daily conversation loop. If we must have this, is it an emergency? If it's no, it goes to the next day. If it's yes, then we go. I must have the servers running now. I must update the servers in 2 days means I talk to you tomorrow. I give you that free time. So it sounds like management is having issues controlling the input stream. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. The other way to account for that too is to budget 20% or 25% of emergency.
Yeah, I'm sorry to do some of that. I have a record call.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And also, the other thing you can do is eventually poll your people and find out who likes the unscheduled stuff. Some people, I love being a firefighter, okay? And you can interrupt me all day long, and I can swap tracks and do it, and that's why I am a producer, because I have, work-related ADD. I was like, oh, man, I can just go to different things. But other people are the ones who are like, I want this thing, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have it done, but leave me alone for 2 weeks. So if you can find out who's which one, then you can start pushing the stuff that they like towards them. And find out who are your firefighters, who are the ones that do it well. Or rotate, if you end up, well, nobody is, then you rotate through. You will have a week where it's all firefighting, and while this other person does this week-long thing that we want to have done by the end of Friday, or 2-week-long thing. So everybody kind of gets, all right, I'm going to be on and busy, either a day at a time or a week at a time, and then I'm going to have a break, and I'm going to be not in that madness.
Yeah, which actually sort of one of these arguments for centralizing.
Yeah. Yes. Mhm.
Another question I love is when you have when you get together as a group,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we'll have these work
So I would put less than 10 people in a room for that. Break them up into groups. And put people who, the reason being is you have more than 10 people in a room, then people are just, it's chaos and they'll just stop talking and all this other crap. So like 9, 10 is usually your outer limits. And then I would say, here is a problem we want you to solve. And we give it to them. And it's not, you know, this group and this group are trying to solve a problem, there's a competition. It's just this group is going to solve this problem, you're going to solve a different one. And people can kind of sign up, and if nobody likes something, then somebody gets stuck with it because they're good or whatever. And then you have them work it out and just talk through it. But I would have a communication moderator for the first few times, and their job is not to contribute ideas. Their job is to make sure that everyone is moderating their communication styles. You don't have someone talking over, everyone's paying attention, and let them know, this person is here to moderate your communication. Once again, clear expectations. Don't surprise people with it. And it's not, you know, you're like, you guys have never worked together before, we're going to have somebody make sure everyone is heard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the safe part. A lot of people won't contribute until they feel really safe. And by safe is, I won't be punished for it, I won't be fired, I won't be ridiculed, I won't look poorly. I'm not going to put an idea out there and it's dumb and everybody laughs. I mean, just that social fear alone keeps so many people quiet. And even people who are talkative will talk about something else versus what they really think about because they're too afraid to toss it out there. So if you've got somebody and it just takes one person. If there's one person who goes, oh, that's stupid, everyone else is going to be like, not me, I'm not talking. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can also give them a little bit of warning. People who tend to be introverted tend to need a lot of time to think about stuff in advance. So they're not going to put an idea out there if it's half-formed. Like, my husband's a quintessential programmer, super quiet. So if I want him to form an opinion, I have to give him 24 hours notice. Because he's going to go research it. He's going to go on the internet, he's going to Google it, he's going to come up with a great opinion. Well, it's going to take him 24 hours. I'm like, what movie do you want to see this weekend? If I ask him Friday at 2 o'clock, the answer will be none. If I ask him Thursday at 2 o'clock, he will come up with a movie that both of us will want to see and the time and have purchased tickets. So it's, you know, it's kind of a silly example, but it's so true. So when you're dealing with something as important as their job and something as fearful as putting their opinion out there, saying, on Friday, we're going to spend 3 hours, so time, I have time during the conversation and time in front of the conversation. Go research all your ideas, see what everyone's done, bring in all, we want to hear the wackiest thing. You know, I've done a couple of them to get people to open up. I'm like, I want to hear the most ridiculous thing you can come up with, your A solution and your slowest solution, your, you know, shortest solution, whatever, and come up with like 3 different things that I want them to all present. And that gets them talking, especially the wackiest one. Like, what's your wackiest solution? You know, and they're like, oh, okay. You know, so I had somebody who's like, the best security system is you put it on a computer, you make it waterproof, and you chuck it in the Marianas Trench. And I was like, and everyone starts laughing. But now you've got a little bit of humor, they did it on purpose, and they're now able to talk a little bit easier. So, what? Yes, there are 2. It is the safest, most secure thing. If it's at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, no one's getting to it. So, and then you go, okay, so Marianas Trench, safest thing ever. You know, what do we do from there? How do we bring it in a little bit so I can, you know, not get wet and get it? So, good questions. Anybody have any other questions? Yeah. Oh, keep going. Yeah. Any more? No? Okay. You have a question? Oh, okay. So that is an agenda with scheduled questions. Also, don't expect a bunch of introverts to suddenly become super chatty. That is not going to happen. ever. They'll talk for 10 minutes, and then they will have exchanged all their information, and they are done, and that's okay. So that is the, like I said, the agenda with specific things. I want you to present, you know, in 5 minutes or less. Very clear. I'm engineers, man. I've become very specific in my world. In 5 minutes or less, your 3 ideas on server security. One of them has to be wacky. One of them has to be what you consider, you know, the top solution, whatever. Whatever your thing is. And then they have to all go through and answer that and say, you have to be prepared to critique somebody else's stuff in a nice way, you know, and get them to go from there. It's really hard. And the room is just going to be quiet. It just is. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some other things. Getting truly interviewed with people. You know, there's icebreakers, and there's some good ones. Don't do anything you want to have a semantic conversation over for 3 hours, because, you know, like, I've had people, you know, silly one, you know, oh shoot, I forgot it. Anyway, like, we've had conversations about how to survive a zombie apocalypse. You know, it's fun. After 3 hours of semantic arguing, it stops being fun. So, yes, exactly. So I have a list of things, no one to break it off. But if you touch on the right topic, you will know because they will talk. Yes. Now you know why Scrum meetings are held standing up. Because the human ability to want to stand for any length of time is about 15 minutes. And everybody else goes, oh, I don't want to stand anymore. Shut up. So that's why those meetings, and yes, I had a group that was on the other side. My design staff was super chatty. So I removed all of the furniture from their area where they were meeting, and it was standing room only. And that was how I got the meetings from 2.5 hours to 30 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, and you know, we talk about the introvert group. You will have introverted groups, and then you will have chatty groups. And they both require different types of stuff. For introvert groups, you can also schedule off-site things. I don't know the age group, but, you know, I find that bringing them out and buying them a round of beers is really helpful. Alcohol. Oh, okay. So you're not going to be near them. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're just going to have to deal with, like, a lot of silence. And you can also ask, when you're dealing with a phone, one of the things you want to say is, so, John, what's your opinion? You have to call out their name. Because if you say, hey, what's your opinion? Everyone's going to wait for the other person to start, and no one will start. And then everyone starts at the same time because they all had waited that long period. But if you say, hey, John, what do you think? And if John has been talking for a while, you go, hey, Mark, what do you think? And then you can go back and forth. But as that communication person, your job is to communicate and make them all. You're the facilitator, yes. So. Well, so there's you know, there's 2 types of reward. There's the appraise, and then there's, you know, financial, essentially. Like if you boil it down to, there's praise and there's financial. I do a lot of praise on a regular basis. If somebody was really helpful, I'll be like, yeah, it was really awesome, thank you. I actually got a woman to cry one time because I said, "Thank you so much for helping me out," and she just started like, she's like, "I have to go to the bathroom." I was like, "What the hell did I do?" She's like, "No one said thank you at my job before ever," and I'm like, "Holy shit! Were these people made by wolves? What the hell?" So yeah, sometimes the word "thank you" can be a lot. We overlook those things, you know. So just being able to say thank you, you did a great job. I really appreciate it. One of my other things is, since I had to do a lot of performance reviews, is I would write a note down about what they did. So when I got to that teamwork thing, I could justify it, and I would say, like, "I noticed you did this." It's always better to do an immediate response. We're all Skinner boxes, let's be honest, Pavlovian dogs. So you want to do it right afterwards. And I did weekly things, you know, like, "Hey, everybody, we'll go out to this place and I'll buy everyone around, or I'll bring in a case or something like that, or we'll go see a movie together," or whatever, like small little things. And it's not based on performance, it's all based on the team's been awesome this week. And just small stuff like that. But the big one is always, you know, is 75% coming from the company bonus and 25% is individual. That alone starts to drive behavior as well. Yeah, so, and it just depends on your group, you know. I had one group, it was wine. We had to go out for wine, they didn't like beer. I was like, all right, fine, that's cool. So, different things. I don't know what time it is. Okay, so I have like 5 minutes. And then they're going to want to kick us out. So, one last question. No? All right, cool. Well, thank you. You guys have been awesome. And I'll chat afterwards. I'm not like socially. Yeah, those are really good questions. I like hearing the questions because then I'm like, what do I put in next time? Yeah. Yeah. And I think the value statement for the different groups